Tommy Chen stepped through the shimmering quantum barrier of Galactic Union Academy, his heart racing despite months of preparation. The transition felt like walking through a curtain of cool water, leaving him momentarily disoriented as his senses adjusted to the alien environment. The Academy atrium stretched before him, a vast cathedral of impossible architecture, crystal spires that seemed to defy gravity, light that flowed like liquid through transparent conduits, and a ceiling that displayed the real-time positions of member worlds across 5 spiral arms of the galaxy. As the first human to attend this prestigious institution, he felt the weight of 17 billion humans on his shoulders. Earth had only joined the Galactic Union 3 standard years ago, after decades of cautious diplomatic exchanges. Tommy still remembered watching the historic announcement on his family's holoprojector, his parents weeping with joy at the possibilities now open to humanity. Glowing holographic signage welcomed students from over 300 worlds, the symbols constantly shifting to accommodate different visual perception ranges. Tommy noticed his homeworld wasn't represented. Not yet. His translator implant hummed softly behind his ear, converting the cacophony of alien languages into comprehensible standard. "That one's from Sol 3, whispered a voice that sounded like bubbling mercury. "Earth," corrected another voice, this one resonating with subsonic frequencies that Tommy felt in his bones. "The Death World." Curious eyes, some multifaceted like polished gemstones, others bioluminescent, a few extending on stalks, tracked his movement through the grand atrium. Tommy heard the whispers rippling through the crowd. Death Worlder, predator species, high-gravity monster. Some students drifted away as he passed, creating a bubble of empty space around him. He'd been briefed about this reaction. Compared to the majority of sentient species, humans had evolved on what the galactic classification system labeled a Class 12 Death World, a planet with punishing gravity, extreme weather cycles, high oxygen content that enabled massive wildfires, tectonic instability, and an overwhelming abundance of predators. What humans considered normal living conditions, most galactic citizens considered a nightmare scenario. A floating orb approached, its surface rippling with iridescent patterns. It hovered at eye level, projecting the holographic image of a being with a chitinous exoskeleton and multiple jointed limbs. The projection's colors shifted in what Tommy recognized as formal greeting patterns. "Student Chen, I am Professor Zilnox, Academy Director for Interspecies Relations." The being introduced herself, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into crisp standard. "Welcome to Galactic Union Academy, the premier educational institution in the Orion Spur." Tommy noticed how she maintained a precise distance of 2 meters, close enough for polite conversation, far enough to establish a safety perimeter. Her exoskeleton clicked nervously as 4 of her eyes focused on him, while the other 2 scanned the surroundings. Despite Earth's challenging classification as a Class 12 Death World, "We're delighted to have you," she chittered, her mandibles twitching in what his cultural training suggested was an attempt at reassurance. "Your presence represents an important milestone in Sol system integration." "Thank you, Professor," Tommy replied, careful to keep his voice soft and modulated. "I'm honored to represent Earth as an exchange student." He smiled but remembered to keep his lips closed, as baring teeth was considered a threat display among several council species. Professor Zilnox's antennae quivered. "Your gravity adaptation units are functioning correctly. We've calibrated the Academy's environmental systems to 0.7 of your Earth standard, but your quarters are maintained at full Earth conditions." Tommy nodded, feeling the enhanced gravity dampeners beneath his uniform. The devices, integrated into a mesh bodysuit, counteracted a portion of his muscle power to prevent accidental damage to lower gravity adapted beings or structures. They felt suddenly heavy, a constant reminder of his Death Worlder status. "The adaptation units are working perfectly," he assured her. "Excellent. Your orientation materials have been uploaded to your personal device. Your first scheduled activity is the welcome assembly in the Grand Amphitheater, beginning in 30 minutes. I suggest you proceed there directly." The professor's projection flickered. And student Chen, perhaps avoid physical contact with other students until they've become accustomed to your presence, for safety reasons. As the projection disappeared and the orb drifted away, Tommy exhaled slowly. This was exactly what he expected, but experiencing the reality of being viewed as a dangerous creature was different from reading about it in preparation materials. He squared his shoulders and began walking toward the amphitheater, conscious of every step, every movement. The eyes of the galaxy were on him. The Death Worlder, the human, the ambassador for a planet that most galactic citizens had never seen and hoped never to visit. His basic Earth-standard body evolved to survive on a world that would kill most sentient beings within minutes, made him simultaneously an object of fear and fascination. Tommy's orientation packet had included one piece of advice that now echoed in his mind. Your greatest challenge won't be academic. It will be helping others see past their preconceptions about humans and Earth. The true education, it seemed, would flow both ways. 2 standard weeks into the semester, Tommy had established something resembling a routine. Each morning began with a private physical training session in his reinforced quarters, the only place he could move freely without gravity dampeners. Earth's diplomatic courts had been adamant about this accommodation. Without regular exercise in Earth-normal conditions, his muscle and bone density would deteriorate rapidly. After training, he'd activate his dampeners, consume his specially prepared nutrient capsules. The cafeteria's offerings were mostly indigestible to humans, and head to classes. By now, most students had graduated from outright fear to cautious curiosity, though the whispers continued. Professor Cripsel's practical engineering classroom featured adaptive seating that morphed to accommodate the wildly different physiologies of its students. Tommy settled into his human-configured chair as the professor floated to the center of the room. Cretoxel was a Melnibonian, a species that resembled a cross between an octopus and a jellyfish, with translucent skin that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns displaying her emotional state. Currently, she glowed with the blue-green hues of educational enthusiasm. Today, she announced, her tendrils waving dismissively, we begin with what I consider an elementary exercise. Her voice emerged from a specialized vocalization sac, while her tendrils manipulated a holographic display. Each student will design and construct a device capable of transporting a standardized mass across the testing field. The parameters are simple enough for first years. The specifications materialized in the air. Design and build a mechanism to move a 20-kilogram standard measurement cube across a 10-meter testing field, navigating 3 simple obstacles. The assignment would count for 15% of their semester evaluation. Tommy watched as his classmates interfaced with their neural implants, eyes glazing slightly as they accessed vast design databases. Next to him, Tzurk, a spindly arthropoid from Proxima Centauri's third moon, clicked his mandibles in distress. 20 kilograms. Tzurk whispered, his translator rendering his chittering into anxious standard. That's practically a small dwelling unit for my homeworld. The gravity there is only 0.2 Earth standard. Tommy nodded sympathetically. Most species in the class evolved on worlds with significantly lower gravity than Earth. What seemed like a modest weight to him represented a serious challenge to many of his classmates. What will you create for this task? Tzurk asked, his compound eyes swiveling toward Tommy. I'm not sure yet, Tommy replied, though ideas were already forming. Earth history was filled with simple machines designed for exactly this purpose. Around them, students were already projecting elaborate holographic blueprints. Vixna, a crystalline entity from Altair, was designing what appeared to be a miniature wormhole generator. The twin methane brothers from Epsilon Eridani were sketching a drone swarm with neural interfaces. Zubo, the amorphous collective organism occupying the back row, was reshaping itself into different possible transport configurations. Professor Krepsel drifted to Tommy's workstation. Student Chen, you appear to be not working. Her bioluminescence shifted to a questioning yellow-orange pattern. Tommy reached into his bag and pulled out an actual paper notebook and pencil. items he brought from Earth. Several nearby students stared in confusion at the primitive technology. "I prefer to sketch my initial ideas physically, Professor," Tommy explained. "It helps me think." Kreptolo's tendrils curled in what the human had learned was an expression of bemused tolerance. "Very well. Though I must note that most species abandoned physical writing implements several thousand years ago." "How quaint." As she drifted away, Tommy began sketching, while his classmates planned force fields and anti-gravity platforms. Tommy's mind returned to his grandfather's workshop on the family farm in rural China. A gaseous entity named Vrixna, contained in a hovering environmental suit, demonstrated a drone swarm that formed a cradle around the test object. Each presentation grew more sophisticated than the last, incorporating neural interfaces, limited teleportation, or molecular manipulation. The solutions displayed mastery of advanced physical concepts: inertial dampening, partial phase shifting, temporary molecular bonding. Tommy waited quietly, his cloth-covered contraption beside him. He felt increasingly out of place as the demonstrations continued, showcasing technology that would be considered miraculous on Earth. Several times, he caught himself wondering if he should have attempted something more advanced. "Sol System, third planet," Professor Crixel finally announced. "Student Chen, you may proceed." The presentation chamber fell silent as Tommy walked forward, wheeling his covered creation. He felt the subtle strain against his gravity dampeners, the familiar pressure reminding him of the physical differences that separated him from his classmates. Whispers rippled through the audience, speculation about what exotic Earth technology might be revealed. With a deep breath and a touch of theatrical flair he picked up from his mother, Tommy pulled away the cloth. The whispers immediately transformed into confused silence as students stared at what appeared to be, by galactic standards, prehistoric technology. "This," Tommy announced with calm confidence, "is called a wheelbarrow." The silence deepened as confused glances bounced around the room. His creation consisted of a metal basin mounted on a single wheel at the front, with two wooden handles extending backward. The entire apparatus was reinforced with lightweight composite materials from the recycling center, but the design was unmistakably ancient and mechanical. A student in the back actually gasped in what sounded like secondhand embarrassment. Zerk's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of nervous distress on behalf of his human acquaintance. Professor Cripsel's upper tendrils drooped in apparent disappointment, her bioluminescence fading to a muted blue-gray. "Please proceed with your demonstration, Student Chen," she said, her tone carefully neutral. Tommy approached the test object, the standardized 20-kilogram cube, and casually lifted it with both hands. This simple action generated another wave of astonished murmurs. Most species present would struggle to move such a mass even in the Academy's reduced gravity. He placed the cube in the wheelbarrow's basin and positioned himself between the handles. With a smooth motion that engaged his core muscles, motion carefully calculated to work within the constraints of his dampening suit, Tommy raised the handles and pushed forward. The single wheel rotated with a satisfying hum as he navigated toward the first obstacle. The chamber remained utterly silent as Tommy wheeled his burden up the incline, the mechanical advantage of his simple machine making the task appear effortless. He traversed the water-filled trench using a narrow bridge extension he built into the design, then crossed the loose gravel section with barely a slowdown, the wheel's surface adapting to the shifting terrain. Upon reaching the endpoint, Tommy set down the handles and turned to face the class. His classmates stared in disbelief, not at the sophisticated technology they'd expected, but at the sheer physical performance they'd witnessed. Completed in 17 seconds, the automated timer announced dispassionately. This beat the previous record by 43 seconds. Professor Crixel's antennae twitched rapidly, the first sign of genuine interest she had shown toward the human student. "Explain your methodology," Professor Crixel demanded, her tendrils now fully extended in a display that Tommy recognized as intense scientific curiosity. The bioluminescent patterns beneath her translucent skin had shifted to a deep purple, the color of intellectual engagement among her species. Tommy wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead and nodded. "Of course, Professor." He gestured toward his creation. The wheelbarrow operates on several simple mechanical principles that humans have utilized for thousands of years. A ripple of disbelief passed through the audience. The notion that such an elementary device could outperform their advanced technology seemed impossible to comprehend. Tommy moved to a nearby console and projected his hand-drawn schematics onto the chamber's display system. The crude drawings appeared starkly primitive next to the holographic renderings his classmates had presented. First, Tommy began, highlighting the wheel component. This device employs the wheel and axle, one of the 6 classical simple machines identified by ancient Earth scientists. The wheel reduces friction between the load and the ground by approximately 86% compared to dragging. He displayed a simple friction coefficient calculation that even the youngest students could understand. Second, he continued, now highlighting the basin and handles. The wheelbarrow functions as a Class 2 lever. He showed the force diagrams. The load is placed between the effort and the fulcrum. In this case, the wheel, creating a mechanical advantage that allows the operator to move a heavier load with less force. Zlebit, the mathematical prodigy from TOS City, interrupted with a series of rapid clicks that Tommy's translator rendered as skepticism. But this design requires significant operator strength. The mechanical advantage is only approximately 3-to-1 based on your measurements. Tommy nodded. That's correct. This design optimizes for simplicity and versatility rather than maximum mechanical advantage. He displayed his muscle tension readings from the dampening suit. For context, the force required to lift and maneuver this 20-kilogram load represents approximately 18% of my maximum capacity, even with the dampeners active. The classroom erupted in astonished murmurs. Most species present had evolved on worlds with gravity ranging from 0.3 to 0.7 Earth standard, with correspondingly less muscle mass. Professor Kretzel drifted closer, her analysis tendrils now extended toward the wheelbarrow. Fascinating. Your species evolved to exert such force casually. Her scientific curiosity had overcome her initial caution around the Deathworlder. Yes, Professor. On Earth, this represents mild exertion for an average human adult. Children use similar devices in recreational settings. Tommy displayed an image of his younger cousin's toy wheelbarrow, generating another wave of disbelief. The third principle, Tommy continued, returning to his presentation, involves balanced load placement. By positioning the weight slightly forward of the wheel, minimal stabilization energy is required from the operator, allowing for precise control with minimal fatigue. He demonstrated by placing a smaller test cube in the wheelbarrow and making a series of tight turns around the presentation space, showing the maneuverability of his design. But what of the environmental adaptability? Asked Saltox, a student from a gas giant moon whose environmental suit concealed their actual appearance. Most of our designs incorporate sensors and self-adjustment algorithms. Tommy smiled. The beauty of this design is its versatility through simplicity. He indicated the wheel. This component is made of a composite material that slightly deforms under pressure, automatically adapting to terrain variations. The handles provide direct tactile feedback to the operator, allowing for real-time adjustments based on sensory input. Professor Kretzel's tendrils delicately examined the construction. You've used recycled materials, she observed, running a sensory appendage along the wooden handles. The resource efficiency is quite remarkable. Necessity drives innovation, Tommy explained. Throughout human history, we've needed to transport heavy objects efficiently with limited resources. This design was refined over generations to maximize utility while minimizing material requirements. But surely, interjected Vaser, the quantum engineering specialist, your species developed gravitic manipulation centuries ago. Why maintain such primitive methods? Tommy considered the question carefully. We have developed advanced technologies, But we maintain older methods for several reasons. First, mechanical solutions don't require power sources or complex maintenance. Second, understanding fundamental principles helps engineers develop intuition for more complex systems. And third, he added with a slight smile, when sophisticated technology fails, these simple machines still work. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room as students contemplated this perspective. Many came from worlds where technology had been stable for thousands of generations, with system failures virtually unknown. Professor Crixel broke the silence. Student Chen, your solution appears deceptively simple, yet contains unexpected depths. The energy efficiency is particularly noteworthy. Her colors shifted to a formal academic pattern. Your demonstration has achieved the highest performance rating in both time efficiency and energy conservation. She turned to address the entire class. Observe how Student Chen's approach differs fundamentally from conventional galactic engineering philosophy. Rather than adding complexity to overcome physical limitations, he has embraced those limitations and designed around them. Tommy stood a little straighter, suddenly aware that he was being used as an instructional example. The professor's tendrils waved in the formal pattern of scholarly appreciation. Perhaps, Crixel continued, her bioluminescence pulsing thoughtfully, there is something to be learned from Death World engineering principles after all. As the class ended, students crowded around the wheelbarrow. Their initial embarrassment for Tommy transformed into genuine curiosity. Many reached out tentative appendages to touch the simple machine, as if trying to understand the secret of its effectiveness. Tzurk approached Tommy, mandibles clicking softly. I didn't understand at first, the arthropoid admitted. But now I see. You don't overcome physical challenges by avoiding them, but by working with them. Tommy nodded, suddenly feeling like a bridge between worlds. That's exactly it. On Earth, we have a saying, work smarter, not harder. But Tzurk observed, compound eyes swiveling toward the wheelbarrow. Sometimes working smarter means being strong enough to use simple tools effectively. Tommy couldn't help but smile. Perhaps being a Deathworlder wasn't such a disadvantage after all. Word of Tommy's unusual solution spread through the academy faster than quantum entanglement. By the following morning, students from other departments were finding excuses to pass by Professor Crixel's classroom, hoping to glimpse the human and his mysterious wheelbarrow. Tommy found himself the subject of intense scrutiny, not as a dangerous Deathworlder, but as an engineering curiosity. Professor Crixel had summoned Tommy to the Advanced Analysis Laboratory, a cavernous space filled with equipment designed to examine objects at scales ranging from quantum particles to planetary masses. The wheelbarrow sat in the center of the room, surrounded by scanning apparatus and holographic displays. Student Chen, Crixel greeted him, her colors displaying formal academic patterns. We have been analyzing your device overnight. The results are unexpected. Tommy nodded politely. In what way, Professor? Crixel gestured with her tendrils toward a holographic display where multiple faculty members were gathered. Tommy recognized Professor Falkspick from theoretical physics, Dr. Wiesert from xenobiology, and several others he hadn't yet met. Perhaps it would be best if you explained your findings, Crixel suggested to the assembled academics. Professor Falkspick floated forward. As a photonic life form, he existed as an organized field of light particles contained within a specialized environment suit. The suit projected facial approximations to assist in communication with solid matter beings. Student Chen, Falkspick began, his voice rendered in somewhat stilted standard, we have conducted a complete physical analysis of your transportation device. Our initial assumption was that it contained hidden advanced technology or exotic materials. Tommy suppressed a smile. And what did you find? Nothing. Falkspick's photonic matrix pulsed with what might have been embarrassment. Absolutely nothing beyond exactly what you claimed. Simple mechanical principles. Common materials. No power source. No computational elements. No gravitic manipulation. Dr. Wiesert moved forward, her insectoid body making soft clicking sounds as she approached. What fascinates us is the efficiency ratio. Your device achieved an energy-to-result coefficient of 89.7%, significantly higher than any powered solution presented. Tommy furrowed his brow. I'm not sure I understand. It's just a wheelbarrow. Kretzel's colors shifted to a teaching pattern. Most galactic engineering approaches problems by asking how can we use technology to avoid physical effort. Your approach instead asks, how can we optimize the application of physical effort? It's a fundamentally different philosophy, added Professor Inglarks, a gelatinous entity whose interior organs were visible through his transparent outer membrane. Most species evolved on worlds where conservation of energy was paramount. Minimal exertion meant survival. But on Earth, Tommy realized, we evolved in conditions where physical capability was an advantage. Our bodies are designed to work, to exert force. Exactly. Crixo's tendrils waved excitedly. Your species developed technology that augments rather than replaces physical capabilities. The efficiency comes not from eliminating effort, but from optimizing it. The academics have projected a comparative analysis of all the solutions presented in class. Tommy's wheelbarrow had outperformed every other design not just in speed, but in energy efficiency, material economy, and adaptability to variable conditions. The mathematical elegance is undeniable, said Sleebit, who had apparently been invited to the analysis session. The Taoisean's multi-jointed limbs manipulated complex equations in the air. The ratio of mechanical advantage to structural complexity follows a golden curve of optimization. Tommy stared at the analysis in amazement. On Earth, a wheelbarrow was considered the most basic of tools, something so fundamental it was barely worthy of engineering consideration. Yet here, surrounded by beings capable of manipulating quantum fields and generating artificial gravity, his simple machine had become an object of scientific fascination. There's more, Dr. Wiesert continued, mandibles clicking excitedly. We conducted biomechanical analysis of your performance during the demonstration. A holographic model of Tommy appeared, overlaid with force vectors, muscle activation patterns, and energy expenditure metrics. Beside it floated similar models of other species attempting to move the test object without technological assistance. The contrast was dramatic. Where Tommy's movements showed fluid efficiency, the others displayed strain, inefficiency, and physical limitations. Your species' musculoskeletal structure, Wiesert explained, evolved under conditions that would crush most sentient beings. Your baseline capabilities exceed emergency maximum outputs for 87% of known spacefaring species. Tommy shifted uncomfortably. I'm just average for a human. There are many who are significantly stronger. This statement generated a wave of astonished color changes, clicks, and photonic pulses around the room. Professor Kritzel's bioluminescence briefly flashed a pattern indicating scientific alarm before settling into thoughtful indigo. Student Chen, Kritzel said carefully, I believe we have significantly underestimated the implications of Deathworld evolution. Your simple solution has revealed a blind spot in galactic engineering philosophy. She gestured toward a new holographic display showing the modified curriculum for the practical engineering course. With your permission, I would like to establish a research module examining what we are now calling Deathworld pragmatic design principles. Your wheelbarrow would serve as the primary case study. Tommy felt a surge of pride mixed with a strange sense of responsibility. He wasn't just a student anymore. He had become an ambassador for human engineering philosophy. I'd be honored, Professor, he replied. Though on Earth, we'd simply call it appropriate technology, solutions matched to immediate needs and available resources. Fascinating terminology, murmured Professor Inglarks. It suggests an approach that considers contextual factors rather than pursuing maximum technological sophistication for its own sake. As the faculty continued their analysis, Tommy found himself drawn into increasingly complex discussions about the relationship between evolutionary history and engineering philosophy. His perspective, shaped by growing up on a world that most galactic citizens considered a death trap, offered insights that centuries of peaceful technological development had never produced. The wheelbarrow, once an embarrassing symbol of Earth's primitive technology, had become a bridge between worlds, and perhaps the beginning of a fundamental shift in how the galaxy approached problem-solving. 3 days after the analysis session, Tommy entered the practical engineering classroom to find it completely reorganized. The standard lecture configuration had been replaced by a circular arrangement, with his wheelbarrow positioned at the center. Professor Kritzel hovered near her teaching platform, her colors displaying patterns of academic excitement. "Student Chen," she greeted him. "Excellent timing. Today's session will be somewhat unconventional." Tommy noticed the room was significantly more crowded than usual. In addition to his regular classmates, students from advanced engineering courses, xenobiology, and even theoretical physics had squeezed into the expanded space. Several faculty members lingered near the walls, attempting to appear casual in their observation. "What's happening?" Tommy asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Cultural exchange," Kritzel replied simply. "Please, take your position." Feeling slightly bewildered, Tommy made his way to a designated spot near the wheelbarrow. As he settled in, he realized the other students were arranged by planetary system, creating a rough map of the galaxy in seeing form. Professor Kritzel's colors shifted to formal academic patterns as she addressed the assembled group. "Today we explore a fundamental question prompted by student Chen's recent demonstration. How does evolutionary history shape technological development? We will proceed with an open discussion format." The questions began immediately, like a dam breaking. "How long has your species used this technology?" asked Mirixian, the historiographer, whose translucent skin revealed pulsing neural pathways beneath. Professor Kritzel drifted over as the room emptied. "An exceptional exchange, student Chen. You've given us much to consider." Tommy smiled. "Thank you, Professor. I've learned just as much from everyone else." Her colors shifted to a more personal pattern. "I must confess, when you first presented your wheelbarrow, I believed you had misunderstood the assignment or lacked the knowledge to create a proper solution." Her tendrils moved in a gesture that Tommy's cultural training identified as apologetic. "I failed to consider that your approach might represent an entirely different and equally valid technological philosophy." "Different environments create different solutions," Tommy replied. "That's why cultural exchange is so valuable." As Tommy left the classroom, he realized something had fundamentally changed. The other students no longer saw him primarily as a dangerous death-worlder, but as someone with valuable perspective, someone whose evolutionary history had created unique insights worth understanding. The wheelbarrow had become more than a simple machine. It had become a bridge between worlds. 2 standard weeks after the cultural exchange session, Tommy received an urgent communication summons. The message, marked with the Academy Director's encryption signature, requested his immediate presence at the Administrative Nexus, a section of the Academy he had never visited before. Tommy arrived 15 minutes early, his gravity dampeners humming softly as he entered the crystalline structure. The Administrative Nexus resembled the interior of a geode, with walls of polished geometric surfaces that subtly shifted colors based on the emotional states of those present. Currently, they displayed a blend of formal blue-violet tones with flickers of excited green at the edges. Student Chen, the reception entity, acknowledged, its voice emanating from the walls themselves. "You are expected in Chamber 3. Please proceed." The chamber door dissolved as Tommy approached, revealing a circular room dominated by a conference table. Around it sat, or floated, or existed in containment fields, the Academy's Executive Council. Tommy recognized Professor Zilnox, who had first welcomed him to the Academy, along with 7 other beings representing the institution's highest academic authorities. "Student Chen," began the Chancellor, a photosynthetic entity glowing with formal energy patterns that indicated a ceremonial occasion. Thank you for responding promptly to our summons. Tommy stood at a respectful distance, unsure of the proper protocol. I'm honored to be invited, Chancellor. How may I assist the Council? The Chancellor's energy field shifted to display communication patterns. We wish to inform you personally of certain developments following your demonstration in Professor Kripsel's practical engineering course. Tommy's heartbeat quickened. Had he violated some unknown academic regulation? Was this about his use of recycled materials? Your demonstration, continued the Chancellor, and the subsequent analysis has ignited unprecedented interdisciplinary discourse throughout our institution. Professor Zilnox's exoskeleton clicked as she added, "We have received 37 formal research proposals from faculty members seeking to explore what they're calling Deaf-World innovation principles. The Galactic Academic Network has expressed interest in establishing a dedicated research hub here at the Academy." Tommy blinked in surprise. All this from a wheelbarrow. A gelatinous entity whom Tommy didn't recognize rippled with amusement. Not from the device itself, but from what it represents, a fundamentally different approach to problem-solving shaped by evolutionary pressures most spacefaring species never experienced. The Council proceeded to outline the academic impact of Tommy's simple demonstration. The engineering department had requested permission to establish a research division dedicated to non-standard physical solution methodologies. The Xenobiology department sought human physiological data to understand how Deathworld evolution created problem-solving approaches fundamentally different from those of non-Deathworld species. Most surprisingly, the Advanced Materials Division wanted to study Tommy's repurposed components, amazed by their durability to mass ratio when employed in such straightforward applications. "We failed to consider," admitted Professor Kripsel, now taking her turn to speak, "that technological advancement might follow different trajectories based on homeworld conditions. The assumption that all species progress along similar technological paths appears to be fundamentally flawed." The Chancellor's light patterns intensified. "Which brings us to the purpose of this meeting. Student Chen, we would like to formally request your participation in a special academic initiative." The proposal they outlined both honored and intimidated Tommy. The Council wanted him to lead a series of seminars on Deaf-World innovation principles for advanced students and faculty, sharing human perspectives on engineering, resource management, and technological development. "But I'm just a first-year student," Tommy protested. "I'm not qualified to teach Academy faculty." On the contrary, Professor Zilnox responded, her earlier caution around the human now replaced by scholarly respect. "You possess experiential knowledge unavailable anywhere else in our institution. Your perspective as both a Deathworlder and someone trained in Earth engineering traditions makes you uniquely qualified." After discussing the details, Tommy agreed to conduct the seminars with Professor Kripsel's assistance. As he left the administrative nexus, his personal device pinged with dozens of messages. Interview requests from Academy publications, questions from students in other departments, and even a communication from Earth's diplomatic corps congratulating him on fostering interspecies understanding. Within days, Tommy found himself leading packed seminars. Students from every department crowded into expanded lecture halls to hear him explain concepts that seemed obvious to any human: mechanical advantage, redundant systems, field repairs, and survivability-focused design. The key principle, Tommy explained to a rapt audience during his third seminar, is designing with resource constraints in mind. Earth technology evolved under conditions where energy, materials, and computational power were limited. This created an emphasis on efficiency and simplicity that persists even in our most advanced systems. He displayed examples from Earth history: the Apollo lunar modules with their minimal life support redundancies, desert water collection systems that operated without power, emergency medical techniques developed for remote regions without advanced equipment. "Remarkable," murmured Professor Thuxpick, who had become a regular attendee. Your species treats scarcity not as a problem to be eliminated, but as a design parameter to be accommodated. The seminars expanded beyond engineering into cultural implications. Tommy found himself explaining how Earth's dangerous environment had shaped human psychology, creating a paradoxical combination of cooperation and competition, caution and daring, tradition and innovation. Humans maintain ancient technologies alongside advanced ones, Tommy explained, because we've learned that new isn't always better in all situations. Context matters. A mechanical clock never needs charging. A paper book works without power. A knife never requires software updates. This perspective fascinated species that had abandoned physical tools generations ago. Many struggled to understand the human attachment to primitive technology until Tommy organized practical workshops where students attempted to complete tasks using only mechanical tools. The most surprising outcome came from the medical department, which launched a research initiative exploring deep-world physiological adaptations and their potential applications in emergency medicine. Tommy's casual demonstrations of human strength, endurance, and damage resistance had inspired new approaches to treating injuries in harsh environments. As the academic quarter progressed, Tommy found himself at the center of a fundamental shift in the Academy's understanding of technological development. His simple wheelbarrow had challenged centuries of assumptions about the correct path of progress, opening minds to the possibility that evolutionary history created not just different bodies, but different relationships with technology itself. Student Chen, Professor Kritzel remarked after a particularly successful seminar, "When you first arrived, many viewed your death-world origins as a liability, something to be compensated for through technological accommodation. Now, many see it as a source of valuable perspective unavailable elsewhere in the galaxy." Tommy smiled. "On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Perhaps the greatest necessity is simply surviving on a world that's trying to kill you." 2 standard weeks after the cultural exchange session, Tommy received an urgent communication summons. The message, marked with the Academy Director's encryption signature, requested his immediate presence at the Administrative Nexus, a section of the Academy he had never visited before. Tommy arrived 15 minutes early, his gravity dampeners humming softly as he entered the crystalline structure. The Administrative Nexus resembled the interior of a geode, with walls of polished geometric surfaces that subtly shifted colors based on the emotional states of those present. Currently, they displayed a blend of formal blue-violet tones with flickers of excited green at the edges. Student Chen, the reception entity, acknowledged, its voice emanating from the walls themselves. "You are expected in Chamber 3. Please proceed." The chamber door dissolved as Tommy approached, revealing a circular room dominated by a conference table. Around it sat, or floated, or existed in containment fields, the Academy's Executive Council. Tommy recognized Professor Zilnox, who had first welcomed him to the Academy, along with 7 other beings representing the institution's highest academic authorities. "Student Chen," began the Chancellor, a photosynthetic entity glowing with formal energy patterns that indicated a ceremonial occasion. "Thank you for responding promptly to our summons." Tommy stood at a respectful distance, unsure of the proper protocol. "I'm honored to be invited, Chancellor. How may I assist the Council?" The Chancellor's energy field shifted to display communication patterns. "We wish to inform you personally of certain developments following your demonstration in Professor Kretzel's practical engineering course." Tommy's heartbeat quickened. Had he violated some unknown academic regulation? Was this about his use of recycled materials? "Your demonstration," continued the Chancellor, "and the subsequent analysis has ignited unprecedented interdisciplinary discourse throughout our institution." Professor Zilnox's exoskeleton clicked as she added, "We have received 37 formal research proposals from faculty members seeking to explore what they're calling Death-World innovation principles. The Galactic Academic Network has expressed interest in establishing a dedicated research hub here at the Academy." Tommy blinked in surprise. All this from a wheelbarrow. A gelatinous entity whom Tommy didn't recognize rippled with amusement, not from the device itself, but from what it represents, a fundamentally different approach to problem solving, shaped by evolutionary pressures most spacefaring species never experienced. The council proceeded to outline the academic impact of Tommy's simple demonstration. The engineering department had requested permission to establish a research division dedicated to non-standard physical solution methodologies. The xenobiology department sought human physiological data to understand how Deathworld evolution created problem-solving approaches fundamentally different from those of non-Deathworld species. Most surprisingly, the Advanced Materials Division wanted to study Tommy's repurposed components, amazed by their durability to mass ratio when employed in such straightforward applications. "We fail to consider," admitted Professor Crixel, now taking her turn to speak, "that technological advancement might follow different trajectories based on homeworld conditions. The assumption that all species progress along similar technological paths appears to be fundamentally flawed." The Chancellor's light patterns intensified. "Which brings us to the purpose of this meeting. Student Chen, we would like to formally request your participation in a special academic initiative." The proposal they outlined both honored and intimidated Tommy. The council wanted him to lead a series of seminars on Deathworld innovation principles for advanced students and faculty, sharing human perspectives on engineering, resource management, and technological development. "But I'm just a first-year student," Tommy protested. "I'm not qualified to teach academy faculty." On the contrary, Professor Zilmox responded, her earlier caution around the human now replaced by scholarly respect. "You possess experiential knowledge unavailable anywhere else in our institution. Your perspective as both a Deathworlder and someone trained in Earth engineering traditions makes you uniquely qualified." After discussing the details, Tommy agreed to conduct the seminars with Professor Crexel's assistance. As he left the administrative nexus, his personal device pinged with dozens of messages, interview requests from academy publications, questions from students in other departments, and even a communication from Earth's diplomatic corps congratulating him on fostering interspecies understanding. Within days, Tommy found himself leading packed seminars. Students from every department crowded into expanded lecture halls to hear him explain concepts that seemed obvious to any human: mechanical advantage, redundant systems, field repairs, and survivability-focused design. The key principle, Tommy explained to a rapt audience during his third seminar, is designing with resource constraints in mind. Earth technology evolved under conditions where energy, materials, and computational power were limited. This created an emphasis on efficiency and simplicity that persists even in our most advanced systems. He displayed examples from Earth history, the Apollo lunar modules with their minimal life support redundancies, desert water collection systems that operated without power, emergency medical techniques developed for remote regions without advanced equipment. "Remarkable," murmured Professor Thuxpick, who had become a regular attendee. "Your species treats scarcity not as a problem to be eliminated, but as a design parameter to be accommodated." The seminars expanded beyond engineering into cultural implications. Tommy found himself explaining how Earth's dangerous environment had shaped human psychology, creating a paradoxical combination of cooperation and competition, caution and daring, tradition and innovation. Humans maintain ancient technologies alongside advanced ones, Tommy explained, because we've learned that new isn't always better in all situations. Context matters. A mechanical clock never needs charging. A paper book works without power. A knife never requires software updates. This perspective fascinated species that had abandoned physical tools generations ago. Many struggled to understand the human attachment to primitive technology until Tommy organized practical workshops where students attempted to complete tasks using only mechanical tools. The most surprising outcome came from the medical department, which launched a research initiative exploring deep world physiological adaptations and their potential applications in emergency medicine. Tommy's casual demonstrations of human strength, endurance, and damage resistance had inspired new approaches to treating injuries in harsh environments. As the academic quarter progressed, Tommy found himself at the center of a fundamental shift in the Academy's understanding of technological development. His simple wheelbarrow had challenged centuries of assumptions about the correct path of progress, opening minds to the possibility that evolutionary history created not just different bodies, but different relationships with technology itself. Student Chen, Professor Critzel remarked after a particularly successful seminar, "When you first arrived, many viewed your Death World origins as a liability, something to be compensated for through technological accommodation. Now, many see it as a source of valuable perspective unavailable elsewhere in the galaxy." Tommy smiled. "On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Perhaps the greatest necessity is simply surviving on a world that's trying to kill you." The Academy's annual innovation exhibition transformed the central atrium into a showcase of cutting-edge galactic technology. Traditionally, the exhibition highlighted theoretical breakthroughs and sophisticated applications of established principles. This year, however, a fundamental shift was evident. Tommy stood at the entrance, marveling at how different the atmosphere felt from his first day at the Academy. Where once he had walked alone through a bubble of fearful space, now students from across the galaxy greeted him with gestures of respect and academic camaraderie. His wheelbarrow, once an object of embarrassment, had sparked a movement. Student Chen, called Tzerk, skittering over on his multiple appendages, now comfortable enough with the human to approach directly. "You must see our project immediately." Tommy followed his arthropoid friend to a display area where a team of students from 6 different worlds had created what they called a hybrid emergency response system. The technology combined advanced gravitic manipulation with mechanical backup systems explicitly designed to function in catastrophic situations. "We incorporated your redundancy principles," Tzerk explained, mandibles clicking with excitement. "The primary systems use standard quantum field technology, but..." He activated a sequence that simulated complete power failure. When energy sources are compromised, these mechanical systems engage automatically. Tommy watched as physical gears, levers, and counterweights deployed, maintaining critical functions without a single watt of power. The elegant simplicity of the backup systems showed deep understanding of the mechanical principles he had shared. "This is brilliant," Tommy praised, genuinely impressed by how they'd integrated Death World thinking into advanced technology. "You've created something that works in both ideal and worst-case scenarios." Throughout the exhibition hall, similar integrations of human-inspired engineering principles were evident. Teams incorporating Death World design concepts dominated the competition categories, creating hybrid solutions that combined advanced technology with practical fallbacks. Vrixna, the gaseous entity who had once demonstrated a drone swarm, approached Tommy in their environmental containment unit. "Our collaboration has yielded significant results," they bubbled, their voice modulator adjusted to convey excitement. "We have developed emergency life support systems using mechanical backups that function without power." The design they displayed showed beautiful synthesis, the elegance of advanced galactic technology paired with the pragmatic resilience of Earth's approach to survival engineering. It had already been approved for implementation on deep space exploration vessels. The crystalline twins from Epsilon Eridani demonstrated their newest creation, an energy distribution system that integrated simple lever principles into quantum field generators, reducing consumption by 60%. "Your concept of mechanical advantage," they harmonized, "applies even to energetic equations when properly translated." As Tommy toured the exhibition, he noted how many projects now incorporated principles that any human engineer would consider obvious: redundant systems, mechanical backups, user-serviceable components, and designs that functioned across multiple environmental conditions without requiring recalibration. Professor Kriptoll found him observing a particularly elegant hybrid design. Her colors displayed patterns of profound satisfaction. Your influence extends far beyond that initial demonstration, she noted. Students now routinely ask questions that would never have occurred to them before. What happens if the power fails? How can this be repaired with minimal resources? Will this function in extreme conditions? Tommy smiled. On Earth, we call those Murphy's Law questions, assuming that whatever can go wrong will go wrong. A surprisingly effective design philosophy, Kritzel admitted. The Academic Council has approved a permanent curriculum shift incorporating these principles. Tommy's own final project, a multi-environment survival shelter constructed from locally available materials on 12 different planetary types, received the highest honors and immediate adoption by Galactic Emergency Services for deployment in disaster zones. The shelter could be constructed without specialized tools, adapted to protect most known sentient species, and incorporated passage systems for water collection, temperature regulation, and atmospheric filtering. As the exhibition concluded, Chancellor Vroom presented Tommy with an unexpected honor: the establishment of a permanent exchange program between the Academy and Earth universities. More significantly, the curriculum would formally recognize the Chen principle of technological appropriateness as a fundamental engineering concept. In recognition, the Chancellor announced, photosynthetic body glowing with formal patterns, that technological advancement follows multiple valid paths shaped by evolutionary history and planetary conditions. Later that evening, Tommy found himself in the Academy's contemplation garden, reflecting on the journey that had begun with a simple class assignment. A first-year student approached, a methane breather he didn't recognize, their compound eyes gleaming through their environmental suit's viewport. "Are you the human with the wheelbarrow?" they asked tentatively. Tommy nodded. "That's me." "Your seminars changed how I think about engineering," they admitted. "Before you came, we thought advanced always meant complex. We assumed sophistication required moving beyond physical mechanisms entirely." "And now?" Tommy asked. "Now we understand that elegant solutions often hide in plain sight." The student gestured toward the stars visible through the garden's transparent dome. "The galaxy contains millions of worlds with different conditions and challenges. Why would we expect a single technological approach to serve them all?" Tommy smiled, recalling his grandfather's workshop wisdom. "The best tool isn't always the newest. It's the one that gets the job done right." As his first year at the Academy neared its end, Tommy watched students testing improved versions of his original wheelbarrow, now enhanced with subtle material improvements but maintaining the core mechanical principles. What had begun as a potentially embarrassing demonstration of primitive technology had evolved into a galaxy-wide reassessment of technological development itself. Professor Zilnox, who had once kept a nervous distance from the dangerous Deathworlder, now regularly consulted with Tommy on cross-species educational initiatives. "We failed to consider," she had admitted, "that evolution on different worlds creates not just different bodies, but different relationships with technology itself." In his correspondence with Earth's diplomatic corps, Tommy emphasized that the true value of human participation in galactic society might not be Earth's most advanced technologies, but rather its long history of creating elegant solutions under harsh constraints. The resilience, adaptability, and practical ingenuity that had allowed humanity to survive on their challenging homeworld might prove to be their most valuable contribution to galactic civilization. The Deathworlder's basic homework had done more than baffle an alien school. It had opened minds to new possibilities, challenged centuries of technological orthodoxy, and created bridges of understanding between evolutionary histories so different they had once seemed incompatible. Tommy Chen, once feared for his Deathworld origins, had become something else entirely, a teacher whose simple wheelbarrow had wheeled in a new era of galactic engineering.